Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love to the author and me. On to the show. Lin You didn't know that his name had spread on the battlefield, and many lords were chasing his whereabouts. Him at this time. On the way to the next battlefield treasure, in a hurry, hoping to get there before the treasure mark disappears. Unfortunately, however, he was only halfway there, and the beam of light marking the treasure in the distance had completely dissipated and disappeared from sight. Sure enough, it is not easy to win two treasures at once. In desperation, he had no choice but to give up his plan to rush over and continue to the depths of the battlefield with the plants. In this way, while looking for other lords, he gradually left the poisonous fog on the edge of the battlefield behind him. Have to say, Battlefield number 1 is really huge, many times bigger than his last battleground. He drove for half an hour without seeing any other lords, not even a single monster. It's so weird. Huh? Stop for a while. Suddenly, Lin You discovered something through the connection of the Demon King Dragon and stopped the Plant Legion. The plants that were still speeding forward under the leadership of Qingting suddenly stopped and rested in place. Lin You stretched out his hand, Qingting understood it, and sent him outside the vine forest with a giant vine. At a glance, he saw a figure lying on the ground in the distance, as if he was eating something. This made him a little weird. There should be all lords in the battlefield, no matter how miserable it is, there will be more or less several troops around. But this person didn't, and because it was too far away, he didn't see the other party's information. Isn't it the lord? Lin You was puzzled and gestured to the plants around him. Then, a few vines quickly spread out from beside him, and came to the back of the man in a blink of an eye. Unexpectedly, the other party suddenly sensed something approaching at this time, turned his head sharply, and revealed what he was eating. It was a rotting corpse. And the person Lin You thought was not a person. It was a rotten zombie with a festering face and abscesses all over. Why are there zombies here? Lin You was amazed to know that this is the battlefield of the world. However, before he could think about it, the zombie roared and rushed towards him, even with half a stump in its mouth, looking extremely frightening. At the same time, the information of zombies also came into view. Name: Carrion Zombies. Race: Humanoid. Level: Level 6. Strength: 350. Physique: 400. Agility: 295. Spirit: 350. Skills: Rotten, Festering Abscess. Introduction: Originally a resident of the capital of the Big Wild Goose Kingdom, he was transformed into a zombie by an unknown infection, with a strong corpse poison all over his body. Question mark. A resident of the capital of the Dian Kingdom? What's the meaning? Seeing the introduction of zombies, Lin You was even more puzzled. It stands to reason that there should be lords from all walks of life in the battlefield of the world, so there will be people other than lords? Forget it, let's get rid of it first. Seeing that the zombies had rushed in front of him, Lin You directly gave orders to the plants. Whoosh! The sound of breaking the air sounded, and a few vines instantly penetrated the head of the zombie, killing him with one blow. The remaining headless corpses also fell to the ground. Lin You took a look. The corpse poison of the 6th order zombies can't have any effect on his plants, so he can rest assured for the time being. But there was one thing that puzzled him. That is, after killing the zombies, there is no magic energy, and no prompts appear. I don't know if it's because of being on the battlefield. Without thinking much, I continued to order to move forward. He also returned to the ivy body and sat down again. In this way, the whole team quickly came to the edge of a vast forest and stopped during the reconnaissance all the way and the way forward. Not because of the need to rest, but because of the sudden sound of a fierce battle in the forest. Quick! Stop him! The battlefield treasure is on him. The mark has disappeared, he must not be allowed to escape. He ran over there. Anxious shouts, accompanied by various roars, continued to sound in the forest, and quickly approached Lin You. Lin You, who had planned to take a look at the situation first, heard their shouts, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Battlefield treasures. These people are fighting for battlefield treasures. It's really hard to find a place to break through the iron shoes, and it takes no effort to get it. The nearby battlefield treasures were fighting all the way to his side. He didn't dare to hesitate, and went directly into the forest with plants other than ivy, just in time to run into a Gale Leopard Lord who fled to him in a hurry. I saw that there were only more than 47th Order Gale Leopards beside the Lord, and they were extremely embarrassed, and it seemed that the loss was not small. Behind it, there is a large area of lords and troops chasing. Flying in the sky, running on the ground, constantly running among the trees, roaring again and again. The galloping leopard lord, who was fleeing in a hurry, soon found Lin You who had entered the forest. His face suddenly turned ruthless, and he wanted to order the troops to attack. But the next second, his pupils shrank suddenly, and a thick look of horror emerged. What did he see? The number of plant troops is exaggerated to the extreme. It actually spread out from the front of him to both sides, covering almost the entire periphery of the forest. What terrified him even more? Looking through the gaps in the trees to the outside of the forest, there are huge vines that are constantly swimming. The monster-like behemoth instantly made him feel terrified. If he dares to make a move, we'll die. Almost in an instant, this idea appeared in the mind of Lord Gale Leopard. He glanced at Lin You, and then looked at the army of lords chasing behind him. Finally gritted his teeth, took out something from his personal space, threw it to Lin You suddenly, and then fled aside without hesitation. The shining brilliance of that thing immediately attracted the eyes of the lords behind him, and his heart was shocked. It's a battlefield treasure. He threw the battlefield treasure out. Go away. The treasure is mine. Go. Grab the treasure. The lords roared again and again and gave orders to the troops around them, rushing towards the battlefield treasures and Lin You. Lin You thought to himself that there are such good things? Just let the plants use the vines to roll the treasure to the side, and put it into the personal space without looking at it. When the lords saw this, their eyes lit up. Put down the treasure, and spare you not to die. What's so much nonsense? Kill him directly. Give it to me. Kill him. The eyes of these lords had been on the treasures on the battlefield, and they did not notice the movements outside the forest at all. Besides, they have so many lords, and there are countless 7th-tier troops around them, so they are afraid of a lord in the area. In the blink of an eye, countless troops turned into a tide, attacking Lin You from all directions, and even the flying troops in the sky swooped down. The vast scene even made the entire forest tremble frantically. But at this time, the lords realized something was wrong. Because as soon as they approached Lin Yu's surroundings, they suddenly felt a strong mental oppression, accompanied by a trace of icy cold. It was as if something was staring at them from behind. What happened? The lords looked around in horror, and even the pace of pursuit gradually slowed down. But in the next second, there was a sudden explosion behind them. A large piece of huge vines rushed out of the ground, completely cutting off their back path. At the same time, beyond the edge of the forest, a large number of vines also began to emerge, densely connected into one piece, constantly shuttled between the trees in the forest, and frantically surrounded their troops. The extremely terrifying picture suddenly changed the expressions of all the lords and wanted to recall their respective units. Unfortunately, their response was slow. Before they could issue an order, an invisible pink aura had already enveloped the entire forest, causing them to gradually become dazed. Vaguely, you can still see a girl dancing low beside him, constantly brushing past them, fascinated. But they didn't notice that at this time, a vine had already appeared behind them, suddenly stabbed. What? A series of screams rang out in the forest. In just a few short breaths, the movement in the forest completely disappeared, leaving only the corpses on the ground. No one is spared. Lin You stood at the edge of the forest, looking at the corpse in front of him, expressionless. It's like doing a trivial thing. However, the other lords in various places on the battlefield were different and fell into a sensation. Because just now, the number of kills in the first place has increased again. Directly from the original 101 to 142, a full increase of 41 heads. And it went up in an instant. My god, how did he kill 40 lords in an instant? This is too perverted. Who is this Lin You? There is such a monster in the #1 battlefield. Fortunately, I didn't encounter him. It seems that I have to be careful in the future. If it is said, many people were wondering what special method Lin You used to kill so many lords. Not many people would dare to question it now. After all, this is too exaggerated. But at the same time, there are also many people who have high self-esteem and are extremely confident in their own strength, eyeing the magic energy accumulated in Lin You. These people, all of them are the arrogant sons of heaven in various realms. They can be called monster-like existences. Just over 100 heads are not enough to make them feel afraid. Instead, it aroused their interest in Lin You, and they inquired about Lin Yu's news and whereabouts everywhere on the battlefield. And as the source of it all, Lin You had already left the forest with the plants at this time, checking the battlefield treasures he had just obtained while on his way. In the blink of an eye, the vast forest was left behind. It wasn't until after he walked away, on the edge of a boulder in the distance, that a figure slowly walked out, looking at the direction where Lin You disappeared and the corpse all over the floor with horror on his face. This person is the galloping leopard lord who just didn't go far. Originally, he just hid in the distance and continued to watch, because he was unwilling to see if he could find an opportunity to regain the treasure. He didn't expect to witness such a terrifying battle with his own eyes. Recalling the scenes when the lords were easily killed just now, he couldn't help but feel a sense of panic in his heart, and at the same time he was terrified. If he hadn't acted decisively just now and threw the treasure out to save his life, I'm afraid he would have turned into a cold corpse like those lords now. How dare you stay, and hurriedly fled here with the troops around him, and fled in the opposite direction of Lin Yu's departure. And what he didn't know was, not long after he left, the corpses lying on the ground in the forest moved suddenly. It was like a chain reaction, including the corpses of the lords, slowly climbed up one by one, the body slammed, and the eyes gradually turned gray. It actually mutated directly into a zombie monster. Lin You, who has already left. I don't know what happened in the forest. At this moment, he is holding a round orb in his hand. Orb of Faith, secondary, after use, it can be 100 points of faith, and it can be dropped. That's right, it was the secondary faith orb he had seen before in the main city's points exchange. Although only increased by 100 points of faith. But the exchange price of this thing is extremely expensive. It takes 50,000 points and 100,000 mana to exchange it, and it can only be exchanged for one per day. This is definitely something that people who are about to upgrade their territory want very much. If you sell it, you should be able to make a lot of money. Of course, Lin You wasn't stupid enough to exchange something as precious as the power of faith for resources. He himself still lacked it. So I just put it in my hand to play with it, put it in my personal space, and prepare to use it immediately after returning to the territory. Come on, move on. After giving orders to the plants around him, he sat back on the rattan chair and began to observe the surrounding situation. Coming all the way, he also gradually discovered the clues of this battlefield. It seems that since he teleported here, the monsters he encountered were all zombies. And as he went deeper, there were more and more zombie monsters around, and they would run out to attack him from time to time. At the beginning, it was only level 6, and it gradually evolved into level 7 at the end. Is it because of its proximity to the source of the plague? Lin You was full of doubts. He still doesn't know what the source of the plague is. It is estimated that the zombies that appeared were all infected by the source of the plague. No way, in order to prevent tomorrow's gas contraction, he can only continue to move forward. Let the ancient war trees and ivy be responsible for opening the way, and the other plants are responsible for repairing the knife. While clearing the surrounding zombies, they scout the surrounding through the vision of the demon king dragon. Until the sun gradually goes down. In the distance, a tall and magnificent city wall and a huge scarlet city gate finally appeared. It was actually a large city with an ancient style. How can there be a city in the 10,000 worlds battlefield? Lin You looked surprised and looked into the distance. I saw that the thick city wall with a height of tens of meters stood on the battlefield plain, and the rock wall went out for an unknown distance. Although it looks dilapidated, it cannot hide its grandeur, at least it is equivalent to an ancient imperial city. On the top of the city gate, the three characters of Dian city hang high on it, which has long been corroded and riddled with holes. Lin, you guessed that this should be what the zombie attribute introduction said, and the country of Dian Kingdom is correct. It's just that the surrounding of the capital at this time was surrounded by countless zombies, and even the moat around the city had a large number of corpses floating, dyeing the river red. Looking through the collapsed corner of the city wall, you can also see an antique building in the city. It seems to be as true as Lin Yu's guess, it is an ancient city. And vaguely, it seems that someone has lived there. Come on, let's go take a look. For some reason, Lin You suddenly noticed something unusual, and felt that this battlefield one did not seem to be as simple as he imagined. There must be some hidden secrets inside. And just as he was gradually approaching the city, in every corner of the battlefield, lords began to rush to the vicinity, looking at everything in front of them with astonishment. What's the matter? How can there be a city here? Is there some treasure hidden in it? With so many zombies, the source of the plague must be in the city. It's really strange, let's go over and take a look. To be able to appear in such a deep place in such a short period of time is basically an extremely powerful lord. Seeing the sudden appearance of the city, not only did not panic, but one by one was aroused and began to approach the city from all corners. At the same time, the zombies surrounding the city also smelled the breath of life, and they all roared and surrounded them, colliding with their troops. In a blink of an eye, the entire plain outside the city was in a mess, all of which were madly surging zombies. Then it didn't take long for them to realize that something wasn't right. Fuck. These zombies are weird, and the corpse poison will actually reduce the attributes of the troops. What's the matter? Why are all these zombies staring at me? Fuck. They will focus fire on the Lord. Rewind. Panic exclamations sounded from all corners of the battlefield. The lords who came over were in a hurry, and they called their troops back to their side and hurriedly retreated. Only a few powerful lords could barely withstand the siege and sneak attack of a large number of seventh-order zombies. None of this shocked him the most. What shocked them the most was that in those zombie groups, there was actually a zombie leader in command. Although it is only a seventh-order leader, the surrounding zombies will obey its orders and come straight to them with a roar, as if they know that the Lord is the key to the team. Not right. Near the city gate. Lin You frowned tightly, looking at the zombies surrounded by the vine forest one after another. The more and more he felt that this place was strange. But compared to other lords, it is obviously much easier for his plant troops to resist zombies. After all, plants rely on the earth, and their vitality is endless. Like this kind of life-devouring corpse poison, the impact on them is not great. And this time, Lin You specially brought out the vines. Under the bonus of 10% recovery speed, it just offset the consumption of corpse poison on plants. In this way, the whole team quickly came to the outside of the city gate while slaying the zombies all the way. But the next second, Lin You saw through the city gate a large area of plague poisonous fog like the edge of the battlefield, covering the entire street, and even bursts of beast roars from time to time. Lin You stopped the plants and dared not enter. He had personally experienced the poisonous plague of the plague on the edge of the battlefield. If he forced his way into it, he would probably be poisoned to the point where there would be no bones left. It seems that it is not easy to enter the city. Or the area has not been opened yet. There was no other way. Seeing that there were more and more zombies around, he had to order the plants to temporarily evacuate and retreated outside. The first exploration of Dian City also came to an end here. It was not until nearly half an hour later that he finally got rid of the pursuit of the zombie group and came to a nearby small mountain village. That's right. It's a small mountain village. Although there are less than 50 households, it is a genuine mountain village, located at the foot of a mountain near Dian City. Lin You stopped curiously and let the plants explore around the village. However, unfortunately, at this time, all the residents in the small mountain village have been infected into zombies, leaving no one alive. It's a good place to stay overnight. After thinking about it, he asked the plants to clean up the zombies in the village, and then slowly walked into the village with Lingxi and the Mushroom Demon King. It was already evening. The afterglow of the setting sun fell, making the bloodstains on the surrounding buildings particularly dazzling. Even on the ground, there were still puddles of blood scratches that had already dried up, which was shocking. It seems that this place should have experienced some kind of sudden change before, and it will become what it is today. It can be seen from the unharvested rice on the ground. Lin You walked around the village and found a casebook in a house that looked like a doctor's house. When I opened it, I saw a long list of cases recorded inside. Dian calendar 114 June, drought. Number of people with leprosy, 8. The weather is getting hotter and hotter, and there are a lot more patients than last month. In this weather, I can't even take a break. In July 114 of the Dian calendar, there was a severe drought. Number of people with leprosy, 23. Death, 1, damn it. Isn't this just normal leprosy? How can people die? This bad weather makes me itchy all over. Dian calendar 114 August, high heat. Number of people with leprosy, 56. Deaths, 5. My body is getting more and more itchy, and when I saw the doctor today, my eyes started to be a little unclear. Am I really getting old? In mid-August 114 of the Dian calendar, it was high heat. Number of people with leprosy, 97. The village chief fell ill, and the village was in chaos. Recently, he likes to eat raw meat more and more. I don't know if the weather is too dry. Dian calendar 114 at the end of August. It seems that I am really hungry and faint. I want to bite when I see people. I will go to the capital tomorrow to pick up medicine. I heard that many people in the city have also suffered from leprosy recently. I hope they can come back safely. The writing is here, and it's all over. And the more it gets to the end, the more scribbled it gets, even with a trace of blood. If Lin You guessed correctly, the note should have been written the day before the doctor went to the capital to get medicine. As a result, I didn't expect that I would never come back. It can be seen from the clean and tidy furnishings of the house. Vaguely, Lin You seemed to have guessed what was going on here, and his brows could not help frowning. He looked at the sky that was completely dark outside, and could only give up his plan to continue to explore the surrounding area, and directly spend the night at the doctor's house, which was fairly tidy. And the plants outside were also called into the village by him, and they took turns to patrol and garrison. This way, you don't have to worry about being attacked by other lords. That's all. The night passed quickly. After simply eating some jerky brought over through the personal space, Lin You left the small mountain village with the plants. What surprised him was that when he walked out of the mountain and came to the vicinity of Dian City, the Demon King Dragon in the air suddenly sent back news that he found the traces of other lords, and was constantly pouring into the city. Has the poisonous gas in the city dissipated? Lin You was amazed and hurried to the gate of Dian City. Sure enough, he found that most of the zombies around have been cleaned up, and piled up from the outside to the city. It seems that someone should have entered the city ahead of him, and even the poisonous gas on the streets of the city has been dissipated. This can be no. If those lords find the source of the plague one step ahead of him, wouldn't the reward for his battlefield mission be lost? He dared to hesitate, and immediately let the plants enter at full speed and hurried towards the city gate. But don't know. At this time, behind the city gate, 3 human lords were waiting there, observing the movements outside through the gap in the city gate. Around each of them, there are at least 100 or more 7th Order arms, adding up to a total of 300. Especially next to the tall man at the head, followed by an 8th Order Titan giant, exuding extremely terrifying power. At their feet, several corpses lay there, all of them lords who had just been killed by them. Brother Mang, it seems that someone is coming. Suddenly, one of the lords let out a low voice and looked out through the gap. How many? The tall man asked in a deep voice. One. The young man in charge of the investigation replied, and then, his face changed suddenly. No, yes. There is something wrong with this man, such a big plant. He is approaching us. The young man seemed to see something that frightened him, but his eyes widened and he spoke without a turn. What a mess, just one group, with Mangji's 8th Order Titan Giant. Is there anyone who can threaten our ancient world? No, monsters. There are really monsters on our side. The young man hurriedly wanted to explain. However, in the next second, the city gate suddenly exploded with a bang, and was directly blown open by a huge force. Countless huge vines suddenly crossed the city wall from all directions and spread towards them. What happened? The 3 lords inside the city gate shouted in shock, and their expressions suddenly changed. They were all startled by the sudden vine and hurriedly withdrew. The young man who just saw Lin You approaching through the crack of the door was even more astonished and looked above the city wall. I saw a figure standing proudly on the city wall dozens of meters high, staring at them condescendingly, and then his mouth moved slightly. Do it. The sound fell, and large tracts of plants poured into the city through the city gate. Above the sky, there were 5 giant plant dragons flying, with mushrooms on their backs, and pea shooters wrapped around them. Mushrooms and peas shot towards the 3 of them. Hurry up and stop them. The man known as Brother Mang was the first to return to his senses, and immediately shouted to the giant titan beside him. Just listening to the roar of the 8th Order Titan, a large red light suddenly appeared on his body and began to expand rapidly. The exclusive skills of the Titan family, the power of the Titans, it can greatly increase its own strength and defense in a short period of time. Even the 7th Order Titan on the side launched their skills one after another to meet Lin Yu's plant army in a red light. That powerful sense of oppression suddenly made Lin You on the city wall narrow his eyes. Boom boom boom. The fallen mushrooms exploded violently on the Titans, but only slightly wounded them. At this time, the other 2 lords also recovered from their shock and immediately issued orders to the troops around them. Go. Block the city gate for me. However, just after their voices fell, a loud roar suddenly sounded in the corridor of the city gate. Including the ivy beside Lin You, all the plants were covered with a red glow. In the flora, a dark willow tree emerged with a green glow, which turned into a halo and swayed around. The 30% attribute of Savage Roar, plus the 8% attribute 10% recovery speed of the Soul Incarnation, plus the affinity halo of Lingxi, instantly increased the attributes of all plants to an extremely terrifying level. It was just a blink of an eye, and the 3 armies were losing ground, falling under the attacks of the plants. Even the 8th Order Titan Giant was unable to resist under the attack of the green vines, and then the leaves in the sky controlled by Lingxi cut the flesh and roared again and again. How can it be? Brother Meng's eyes were splitting, and a storm surged in his heart. His 8th Order arms did not have any ability to parry under the opponent's attack. Where is the other party? Brother Meng looked at the top of the city wall in shock. When he saw Qingting and Lingxi beside Lin You, he was shocked. 8th grade. There are actually 2 8th Order. You must know that he has spent a lot of resources and energy just by cultivating an 8th Order. There is someone who is more perverted than him and directly cultivated 2 8th Order. That's not the most important thing. What surprised him the most was the size of the plant. How can the 8th Order arms have such an exaggerated body shape? Even the tens of meters high city wall can be easily climbed over. Seeing that his troops were constantly being defeated and more giant vines appeared in the city, Brother Meng finally wanted to retreat. Taking a deep look at Lin You on the city wall, he immediately shouted at the 2 companions beside him. Retreat! The 2, who were still terrified by Lin Yu's terrifying strength, were suddenly shocked and hurriedly summoned their respective arms to flee to the city. On the way to escape, many troops were by vines and killed on the spot. However, the 3 of them also escaped Lin Yu's pursuit with the help of the city wall, and disappeared into the dense buildings in the city in a blink of an eye. Okay, stop chasing. Lin You on the city wall immediately stopped the team, staring at the direction where the three disappeared. He didn't expect that he would meet a lord with an 8th-tier arm so quickly, and he was a titan arm with an extremely pure bloodline. This battlefield is indeed well-deserved. But he wasn't worried. Anyway, the poison circle shrinks every day, and it will meet again sooner or later. The most important thing for him now is to quickly find the source of the plague and get the rewards of the battlefield mission. After all, it is a quest that runs through the entire battlefield, and the reward is definitely not bad, and it may even exceed the ultimate treasure on the last day. After thinking about it, he said to the plants around him, "Let's go, let's talk about it in the city." In this way, the plants passed through the city gate and entered the city one after another. He also followed Qingting across the city wall and came to the wide street. At a glance, as he expected, the poisonous fog in the city has all dissipated, leaving only rows of dilapidated ancient buildings and corpses everywhere. There are soldiers and zombies, and they are all traces of battles. It seems that many people have entered the city ahead of him to find the whereabouts of the source of the plague. Without wasting time, after identifying the direction, he continued to drive towards the city with the plants. The other side. Brother Meng and others who escaped from the city gate, fled to another street, and then stopped slowly. Looking at them again, there were only 50 or 60 armies left, almost halved, which made them both fearful and horrified, and their faces became solemn. I didn't expect that there would be such a terrifying lord in this battlefield. Brother Meng's full name is Meng Kuan. Even among the Sixth Order lords of the ancient world, he is a prestigious existence for a long time, but he did not expect that he would end up in such a miserable state. "Brother, do you think that guy is the first Lin You?" said the flat-headed youth on the side. "It shouldn't be wrong. With my strength as a Tier 8 Titan, I can at least rank in the top 10 in Battlefield number 1. Together with the two of you, both of you have lost so badly. There is no one else except him." Meng Kuan said with almost certainty. "Then what should we do?" "Should we inform others?" another youth asked. "Notice? Why should you notify? Those guys are better if they don't know." Meng Kuan's expression gradually became sullen. "What does the big brother mean, want them to bite the dog?" "No, you're wrong, that Lin Yu's strength is far beyond our imagination, only those arrogances will be bitten. The last time I was on the battlefield of myriad realms, I dared to treasures from me, and now it's time for a round. Until they suffer a loss, lords like Meng Kuan are basically teleported to battlefield number 1 every time. They have long known the Sixth Order evildoers in other realms, and there have been many battles. Now that he has suffered a big loss, how can he not let several other competitors eat it? Otherwise, he really can't balance in his heart." Thinking of this, he set off again, and rushed into the city with his two younger brothers and troops, away from the area where Lin You was. And over time, outside Dian city, more and more lords began to gather, pouring into the city from the city gates in 4 directions. Battles inside and outside the city occurred frequently, and friction continued. Even when Lin You was exploring on the street, he encountered and killed 2 lords from other realms. In this way, the plant army led by Lin You soon came to a deeper part of the city during the investigation. Have to say, this big wild goose city is really big, even bigger than imagined. As far as the eye can see, there are rows of ancient-style buildings. Restaurants, post stations, pharmacies, pawnshops, tea houses, everything. Even the roadside is full of various carriage vendors. It's just that they all rolled over to the ground, looking a little rotten. There are also many shocking bloodstains on the side, making the whole street look deep and terrifying. And the more you move forward, the more zombies you encounter, and there will be extremely fast zombie dogs and other mutant livestock from time to time. Lin You had to slow down and clean up the zombies along the way, while exploring the city's secrets. And just as he continued to move forward into the city, on a street on the other side, Meng Kuan and the others, who were in a hurry, finally met other lords. "Huh? Isn't this Meng Kuan from the ancient world?" Running so fast, are you rushing to reincarnate? A voice full of ridicule sounded at the end of the street. A man in white clothes walked out slowly with a group of dark figures floating in the air. Wu Zhongming? Seeing the person coming, Manhwa's face sank and he stopped immediately. I saw that there were more than 100 troops by the man in white, and all of them were spirit-type swordsmen. In the hands of each arm, they carry a large pitch-black knife, which looks extremely sharp and somewhat illusory. But what made Manhwa the most dreaded was Wu Zhongming, a huge resentful spirit with a sickle in his hand. Impressively, like his Titan giant, it is also an existence that has reached the 8th order. If it was normal, he would never be afraid of the other party, and even wanted to make a big fight. But now that his arms have suffered heavy losses, he is naturally a lot more cautious. He pointed his gaze directly at the other party, and snorted coldly, I didn't expect to meet you here, don't you have no one in the Rakshasa world? I have come to the first battlefield twice and still haven't risen to the 7th rank. Aren't you also stuck on the 6th rank? Wu Zhongming glanced at Manhwa lightly, while secretly observing the situation around Manhwa. However, the more he observed, the more frightened he became. He knows Manhwa's strength, and he is almost on a par with him. Even if it is placed on the entire 6th order battlefield, it belongs to the top group. But with such strength, it has become so embarrassing, and even the arms have been reduced by half. Could it be that something has changed? Shocked, he said without a trace, you don't seem to be in a good situation, what's wrong? You got into a fight with those other guys? It's none of your business. You shouldn't be looking for me just to chat with me, right? Manhwa interrupted Wu Zhongming directly. Since you already know that, why ask? The words were interrupted. Wu Zhongming was not angry, but hung up a smile. Manhwa's eyes darkened when he heard the words. Don't think that I don't know your plan. I've been stuck at the 6th rank for a long time, not to get that thing. Since you know, why do you need to say more? In time, everyone will do what they can. A good one depends on your ability, let's wait and see. After leaving a sentence, Manhwa left with the troops and 2 younger brothers, completely ignoring Wu Zhongming's obstruction. Wu Zhongming glanced at the 8th order Titan giant beside him and his 2 companions, and finally gave up the plan to shoot, because he is not fully sure that he can keep Manhwa. In this way, after a few people met in a hurry, they separated and nothing happened. And as more and more lords poured into the city, a reminder finally sounded in the minds of all the lords. Lords, please note that the deadly plague is about to start shrinking. At that time, the battlefield area will be reduced to half of the original size, please be prepared. What? The poison circle shrinks so quickly? Run. Don't be overtaken by the poison circle. I don't know where it will shrink, so let's leave quickly. A cry of exclamation continued to sound in every corner of the battlefield. The lords from all walks of life who were still fighting stopped and hurried to the center of the battlefield. Gradually, more and more people found Dian city at the center of the battlefield and swarmed into it frantically. As the saying goes, places with many people are right and wrong. In just a short time, a large number of lords gathered at the city gates in the 4 directions, and battles of various sizes continued to take place. As long as the lords of different realms meet, if they disagree, they will fight and become a mess. Some lords steal chickens and kill the enemy while they are in chaos. The entire periphery of Dian city began to become lively. Certainly, none of this has anything to do with Lin You. At this time, he was walking around with the plant army, cleaning up the zombies along the way. There are too many zombies in the city, constantly emerging from all directions, no matter them. And the deeper into the city, the larger the number, which seriously slowed down his progress. Until near noon, it was only a dozen kilometers ahead, not even 1/10 of the city. It seems that the source of this plague should be in the center of this imperial city. Lin You looked into the distance through the surging zombies around, and his face became more and more solemn. Now even the sky is full of all kinds of zombies and birds, and he didn't dare to rush into the inner city on the Demon King Dragon rashly. In case one is not easily besieged, it may be difficult to deal with just a few flying units. It is safer to advance slowly as it is now. Roar. Just thinking about it, a roar suddenly came from the zombie group. A rotting giant elephant with its bones exposed appeared and rushed towards him. Wherever he went, the ground shook, and even the seventh-order zombies along the way were knocked away one after another. Lin You retracted his gaze and looked at the monster that suddenly appeared in surprise. Name, Plague Elephant. Race, Beast. Level 8. Power, 2000. Physique, 1805. Agility, 1546. Spirit, 1883. Skills, Thick Leather, Ivory Rush, Poison Rain Spray. Introduction. Originally a circus pet raised in the palace, it was infected by an unknown and turned into a zombie, with strong corpse poison all over its body, and it sprayed the corpse poison into the air, forming a terrifying poisonous rain around it. 8th Order Monster. There will be an 8th Order monster here. Lin You was shocked. He quickly gave orders to Lingxi and Qingting beside him. In an instant, the thick vines changed direction and rolled towards the plague elephant. At the same time, the wood thorns in the sky condensed, turned into an afterimage in the air, and shot out. Roar. Unexpectedly, at this time, the plague elephant suddenly roared and sprayed a large amount of poisonous water on the top of the head, which turned into rain and fell down. As soon as the wood thorns and vines entered the range of the poisonous rain, they were instantly corroded, emitting white smoke, and then fell to the ground. It was all blocked. Taking advantage of this attack gap, the plague elephant rampaged, slammed into the sea of dead flowers around the vine forest, and directly stepped on a large area of undead flowers. Lingxi responded in a timely manner, and immediately waved the staff again, pointing out of thin air. The dense thorns suddenly rushed out of the ground, tying the body of the plague elephant, and its momentum suddenly stopped. Then, the vines of the ivy followed. In the sound of bursts of air breaking, it attacked the plague elephant from all directions, instantly penetrating its body. Hearing the horrific howl of the plague elephant, the entire huge body was stabbed into a hornet's nest and fell heavily to the ground. Even the flesh and blood on his body was swallowed up by the green vines, allowing the vines that had just been corroded to recover quickly. Good job. Lin Yu praised and told the plants to move on and rush into the city. At this moment, the area of the poisonous fog that was shrinking on the battlefield made a loud boom and slowly stopped 30 kilometers outside of Dian City. It also forced all the lords around Dian City and had to go deep into the city. Because they know very well that if this trend continues, the poison circle will definitely shrink to Dian City the next day, leaving only a dead end outside the city. So soon, more and more lords began to emerge around Dian City, fighting fiercely inside and outside the city gate. At the same time, there are also many lords who meet their companions in their respective realms, and they continue to form gangs to strengthen the team and make the battle heat up again. It was like this until halfway through noon, when their battle was finally interrupted by a prompt. Lords, please note that treasures on the battlefield appear and are randomly refreshed in every corner of the battlefield. The moment the prompt sounded, 6 beams of light descended from the sky and appeared in every corner of the battlefield. Taking a closer look, the places where the treasures descended are actually all within Dian City, just in 6 corners. It's a battlefield treasure. Let's go over there. It's all in the city? Don't fight, it's important to grab the treasure first. We gathered so many people this time, we must grab the treasure. When the treasure appears, the lords have no mind to fight again. Immediately recalled their respective arms and hurried to the direction of the beam of light, which also emptied the entire city gate, giving those lords who were weaker and dared not approach the city a chance to enter the city. This is not. Those ferocious lords have just left. The 2 lords appeared outside the city and walked cautiously towards the city gate. Luo Lei, wouldn't it be bad for us to enter the city now? What if we encounter other powerful lords? No way, this is our only chance to enter the city. If those lords come back to guard the city gate after robbing the treasures, we won't be able to get in, and sooner or later we will be poisoned outside. That's true, then let's go in and find a place to hide first. Compared with the lords who were fighting near the city gate just now, the strength of these two people is obviously much weaker. There are only 7 or 8 7th order arms around, and the other dozens of arms are all 6th order. It's not a big deal on other battlefields, but it's not enough on the first battlefield, and it can even be killed casually. It was also thanks to them that they were careful enough to survive to this day. Seeing that the lords have gone far, they are all attracted by the battlefield treasures. They immediately took their troops through the city gate and entered the city, fled in the direction away from the battlefield treasures, looking for a relatively secret building to hide first. Simply know how to live. And this time, near a market on the other side, a group of lords rode their mounts and ran fast on the street, watching with great excitement a beam of light that was getting closer and closer in the distance. Haha, I didn't expect a treasure to be so close to us, it's really God helping us in the blue world. It is estimated that people from other realms have not arrived yet. Let's hurry up and run after taking the treasure. Yes, those guys must not be allowed to catch up. There are a total of 4 lords in the team, and each of them is surrounded by at least 50 or more 7th order troops, scattered around the streets, and it looks extremely spectacular. Soon, they crossed the street to the outside of a market at the end, where the treasure was located. Looking at the beam of light that was so close at hand, a strong excitement appeared on the faces of several people, and they directly took the troops through the entrance of the market and entered it. However, in the next second, their expressions froze and they stopped in place. They all stared at the deepest part of the market, a figure sitting on the roof, and the tiny vines all over the market. Someone came so soon? Lin You slowly got up and looked down at the people who suddenly appeared. And in his hand, he was holding a radiant blueprint, just above the center of the beam of light. Seeing the blueprint in his hand, the eyes of the 4 people below condensed, and their faces darkened instantly. Boy, hand over the battlefield treasures obediently, and spare you not to die. You dare to stay here after taking the treasure, you are not small. Stop talking nonsense with him, let's go together. Grab the treasure first. Go. Kill him. With an order, more than 200 7th tier troops and more than 300 6th tier troops roared and rushed towards Lin Yu's location. When the 4 saw that Lin Yu was alone, they grinned, and there was a trace of cruelty in their eyes. But in the next second, their expressions suddenly changed, becoming horrified. Because at the moment they ordered, a large number of giant vines began to appear around the market, surrounding them. Even in the buildings in all directions, vines rushed out, like a giant python, attacking them straight. Go. Hearing a low voice from Lin Yu, the entire surrounding of the market boomed and collapsed completely. Countless plants and undead flowers showed their bodies, directly drowning the troops that rushed up, and in a blink of an eye, there were screams and screams. In the blink of an eye, nearly half of the 500 troops were lost, and collapsed in pieces, bleeding all over the floor. The terrifying scene immediately caused the 4 lords of the blue world to be terrified, and they stepped back in panic. But before they took a few steps back, their bodies were all shocked, and their eyes became dull. The control skill to seduce the Banshee's Kiss, is activated. You know, these lords are only 6th order. Coupled with the fear in his heart and the mental suppression of Qingting, how could he escape the control of the charming Banshee? After losing the protection of the troops, it directly became the fish on the chopping board. Then, under the control of the enchanting Banshee, they suddenly drew out their weapons and aimed at each other. Puff. The sound of flesh being pierced sounded. The 4 lords only felt a pain in their chests and woke up from their sluggishness. Then there were round eyes, looking in disbelief at the weapon that passed through his chest, as well as the companion holding the weapon. In the end, he fell to the ground without saying a word. Together with their troops, they all wailed and fell to the ground, dying instantly. Kill the 6th order lord of the alien plane, get 13,000 magic energy, the 6th order territory essence X1. Kill the 6th order lord of the alien plane, get 19,000 magic energy, the 6th order territory essence X1. Kill the alien plane. 4 consecutive reminders sounded, providing Lin You with more than 70,000 magic energy. Let his magic energy rise to more than 350,000. It seems that the further back you go, the more magical energy the Lord has. This increases much faster than he was yesterday. And just as he was checking the other party's body, there was another hurried footstep on the street in the distance. Quick! The treasure is ahead, let's go over there. What? A shrill scream resounded in the market. Lin You looked at the 50th corpse lying in front of him with calm eyes. On the edge of the market, there were more than 30 lords gathered. They have just arrived from other places and want to treasures on the battlefield. At this time, they all looked at Lin You and the plants beside him with astonishment. No one dared to step forward. Because anyone who dares to go up will die. They really don't understand why there is such a terrifying existence in this battlefield. Not to mention that one person can easily fight back against dozens of lords, but he also has so many perverted arms. Especially the distorted plant with a huge size and an extreme exaggeration, it is simply not an army that can be cultivated by humans. What? Are we going to continue? In a certain team, a lord whispered, his eyes full of fear. The other lords on the side had basically the same expressions as him, but they didn't make a sound. And just when they decided to stay, the corpses of the lords who were killed by Lin You just now began to shrink rapidly, and then the undead flowers grew and joined the already huge team. Seeing this scene, the lords trembled again. How dare you stay any longer, and immediately shouted to the team around him, retreat. In a blink of an eye, the surrounding lords fled and evacuated, and they all evacuated the area where Lin You was with their respective arms, causing the entire market to be completely empty. Lin You looked at the lords who were fleeing, and did not continue to pursue them, nor did he bother to pursue them. Instead, the plants were recalled to their side to check for battle damage. It has to be said that the lords who can live to the next day are much stronger than the previous day. After the battle just now, his proliferating arms directly lost more than 50, and even the undead flower army created by killing zombies was reduced by nearly half. After all, it was a combined siege in the face of so many elite lords. No matter how strong he is, he can't be unscathed. But thankfully, there were no casualties on the body of the plant. Under the healing halo of the willow tree and the group treatment of the elves, it gradually split into proliferators, and it would not be long before they returned to their prosperous state. Moreover, his main combat power now still relies on the 2/8 orders of Lingxi, as well as the undying flower army. This loss has little effect on him. Seeing that the surrounding corpses were gradually being reborn into immortal flowers, he rarely relaxed and took out the blueprint he just obtained from his personal space. Building name, arms base, drawings. Building level, increase with faith level. Architectural function, each type of arms can be strengthened. According to the different types of arms that are placed in the treasures, the effects are different and can be dropped. Required for construction, 2,000 wood, 2,000 stone, 1,000 iron ore, 1,000 copper ore, 500 magic powder, 10,000 magic energy. This is the second time Lin You has seen a territorial building containing the word arms. The first tower of arms I saw was very powerful. It could almost be said to be the most important building in his territory, and it was also the basis for his strength enhancement. Now that he saw the building with the word arms again, he couldn't help but look forward to it, wondering what powerful role this building would have. According to the introduction, each type of arms can be strengthened, and it is determined according to the type of arms that are put into it. This is somewhat similar to the Blessing Temple in Huangsha City. It's just that the Temple of Blessing is a buff to the territory, and this is a buff to the troops. But the problem is that he has absolutely no idea what the so-called secret treasure of arms is, and where to get it. He seemed to have seen other lords talk about this on the regional channel before, but he didn't pay attention. It seems that after I go back this time, I have to find a chance to ask. After thinking about it, Lin You put away the drawings and put them in his personal space. After looking around again, he continued on the road with the plants and rushed to the center of the city, leaving the messy market behind in no time. Have you heard? Just now there was a ruthless man from the east of the city. He singled out dozens of lords and killed them all. Damn it, one person heads up dozens of times? This is too perverted, isn't it? It's more than a pervert, it's just outrageous, isn't it? This is what I heard from the lords who escaped when I went out to inquire about the news. Then what should we do? Qingdong doesn't seem to be far from us. I think it's better for us to leave here first, so as not to encounter that pervert. Agreed, I don't want to die here. On a certain street in Dian City, two lords were talking in a low voice, spreading the news about the big event that just happened in the city, and Lin You showed his might, and the news of killing dozens of lords at one time gradually spread among the lords, causing an uproar in the city. Many lords who received the news were suspicious and took their troops away from the eastern area of the city. Others did not believe it at all and continued to explore the city. And some smarter people guessed Lin Yu's identity faintly. Because just now, the number of kills for the first place changed again. Killing list. First place, Lin You, Primitive World, kills 211. Second place, Ren Juanhao, Hong Wengi, killed 69. Third place, Lovis, Magic World, kills 66. Fourth place, Wu Zongming, Rakshasa World, kills 65 enemies. Magic Energy List. First place, Lin You, Primitive World, Magic Energy, 715000. Second place, Skmond, Abyss World, Magic Energy 228000. Third place, Ren Juanhao, Honghuang World, Magic Energy 209000. Fourth place, Dragon Caesar, Dragon Zuanjia, Magic Energy 200,000. That's right. Because of the battle just now, Lin Yu's kill count soared to more than 200, and the gap between him and the second place was widened again. The accumulation of 700,000 magical energy made countless lords jealous. In other words, if they can kill Lin Yu now, they can directly obtain 700,000 mana. That's not the most important thing. According to the spreading news, Lin Yu is likely to have 1 or even 2 battlefield treasures. 2 treasures. If you can get it, it's definitely a huge boost for them. And battlefield treasures are guaranteed to be killed. As the saying goes, people die for wealth and birds die for food. Under the temptation of such huge resources, the lords who thought they were quite powerful began to rush to the east of the city, looking for Lin Yu's whereabouts, in an attempt to rob him of the resources. Even some of the famous lords on the list joined it. If there is anyone out there who is the most sensible, without the slightest thought, it is estimated that ManhwaRecap is none other than ManhwaRecap. Because he was one of the few lords who had fought against Lin Yu and survived. As for Lin Yu's horror, he had personally experienced it, and even now, when he thinks about it, he feels scared for a while. Seeing those lords flocking to the east of the city, he not only did not follow, but instead gloated. Go, hurry up and die. It's better to go all over and see how you die. ManhwaRecap thought viciously in his heart, not to mention how happy he was, and even the haze of the massive loss of arms was swept away. Then, he left the place with a few subordinates and troops, continued to clear the zombies, and went deep into the city. Lin Yu, who was on his way, did not know that he had been targeted by the lords. At this time, he is constantly killing the surrounding zombies to open the way. With the fall of the zombies. Finally, when the afternoon came, I successfully passed through the outer streets and came to the inner city. You can also see the view of the inner city. This is. Lin Yu looked surprised, looking at a huge palace gate at the end of his sight. It was a majestic palace. And around the palace, a large number of zombies of different shapes gathered, and even the 8th Order zombies were not few. But what surprised him the most was that on the city wall above the palace gate, there were actually many gray-white rhizomes growing, covering almost the entire palace wall, and constantly spreading out to the outside of the palace. Could it be that the source of the plague is in this palace? Lin Yu's face was solemn. Although he was separated by a very long distance, He could feel an extremely oppressive aura through the palace gate, and even the smell in the air became much thicker. Following the smell of blood, he looked to both sides of the palace gate. In the next second, a pair of pupils suddenly tightened. What did he see? A mountain of corpses. It was piled up like garbage in the deep pit next to the palace wall, tens of meters high. At a glance, there are corpses everywhere. Blood flowed all around the corpse, dyeing the surrounding ground black and red. This is at least, it can only be done by killing tens of thousands of people. Lin You was horrified. These people were obviously killed when they rushed to the palace at the time of the disaster. What happened to make them so crazy? Could it be that there is something to save life in the palace, or do you simply want to hide in the palace for refuge? The more Lin You thought about it, the more puzzled he became. At this moment, there was a sudden chaotic footsteps and a few shouts behind him, and they were approaching him rapidly. I heard that Lin You is in this area in the east of the city. Let's continue to look for it, and we must not let the aliens from other realms take the lead. Okay? Looking for me? Lin Yu's eyes narrowed gradually. With a wave of his hand, the plants around him spread out and hid behind the buildings on both sides of the street. Qingting also retracted its vines to the ground, hiding its body. In a blink of an eye, only some plants remained by Lin Yu's side. Sure enough, it didn't take long for a group of lords to appear at the corner at the end of the street with their troops and hurried towards this side. What Lin You didn't expect was that this so-called person is not a person, but a tall half-dragon man with scales all over his body. Brother Caesar, look. There is a human in front of you. At this time, the half-dragon lord who was in a hurry also found Lin You on the street and stopped. The teams on both sides faced each other across the street. After looking at each other for a while, a half-dragon talent with golden scales walked out of the team, ignoring Lin You arrogantly. Human, I have something to ask you. If you don't want to die, answer my question obediently. Obviously, seeing Lin You alone, they didn't take Lin You seriously. Lin Yu's face was calm, and he observed the arms around these aliens. Almost all of them were of the Yalong family, and all of them were above the 7th rank. In particular, the head of the half-dragon man is riding a huge purebred earth dragon, with an imposing manner approaching the 8th rank. And just now, the other half-dragon people seem to call him Caesar. Could it be that this guy is Long Caesar, who ranks 4th on the magic energy list? Thinking of this, Lin Yu's eyes changed when he looked at the other party, as if he was looking at a mobile money bag, radiating light. If you're enjoying my content, please consider donating a coffee. Or checking out my shirts on TeePublic. Long Caesar did not notice the change in Lin Yu's eyes. Seeing that he was silent for a long time, his face suddenly sank. Human, you. However, as soon as the words came out, there was a commotion from the other half-dragons, all of them looking around in horror. I saw that around the street where they were, I don't know when it started, and a lot of plants and giant vines grew. Even in the nearby buildings, a large number of piranhas emerged, surrounding them. What's going on? How come so many plants suddenly appear? The half-dragon man shouted in surprise, and immediately summoned the troops to his side. Long Caesar, who was interrupted, also widened his eyes, looking at Qingting's body gradually appearing beside Lin You, and Lingxi dancing in the air. When he felt the aura emanating from them, his whole body trembled even more. 8th tier troops. This human actually has 2 8th order. This time, Long Caesar was really shocked. I didn't expect that the strength of this unremarkable human being would be so terrifying. Even the number of those piranhas is more than all their arms combined. Immediately, he thought of something, and his face suddenly changed. You are that Lin You. A loud bang came out of his mouth. Even the few half-dragon companions next to him cast their eyes in astonishment. Didn't they come here this time to find Lin You, who was number 1 on the list? Congratulations, you guessed it right. The corners of Lin Yu's mouth rose slightly, but the next moment, his expression turned cold. Whoosh! 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 The sound of breaking the air sounded, and huge vines rushed out suddenly, surrounded by Long Caesar and others from all directions. This time, Lin You was smarter, and directly asked Qingting and Lingxi to surround the entire block with plants, blocking all the others' retreats. At the same time, the vines of those banshee plants were clinging to the ground, or burrowing into the ground, and with lightning speed, they tied the Yalong troops that were blocking the surrounding area, threatening to push away a few half-dragon lords. "Quick! Stop them!" Long Caesar and the other half-dragons shouted in shock, their faces filled with fear. They had never imagined that Lin Yu's strength had actually reached such a terrifying level as rumored. Do not. Even more powerful than rumors. It was only a face-to-face effort, and the troops protecting them were all overwhelmed by vines and undead flowers, and fell to the ground in pieces. The other plant arms were mixed in the undead flower, and the ancient war tree led by Qin Gang and 2 8th-order tree demons opened the way and crushed them all the way. On the side, there are also constantly throwing explosive mushrooms and sharp thorn balls, causing a series of explosions in the street. Even worse. After their troops fell, new piranhas grew and joined the battle directly. Roar! I just heard the roar of the 8th-order ground dragon beside Long Caesar, ramming wildly in the sea of dead flowers, and then opened its mouth, and a scorching dragon flame suddenly spewed out, instantly burning a large piece of undead flowers. However, before they could rejoice, a large swathe of immortal flowers emerged immediately, surrounding the 8th-order ground dragon and gnawing at its body. The 8th-order ground dragon roared again and again, but couldn't get rid of the death flower group, and was bitten all over the body in no time. The unceasing blood flow aroused the bloodthirsty desire of the undead flower and the frenzied banshees, and they attacked wildly. No. It's impossible. Long Caesar shook his head and stepped back, his round eyes full of horror. But before he could take a few steps back, he found that the entire street had been completely blocked by plants and vines. Everywhere his eyes go, there are twisted plants that grow wildly. Even in the sky. The vines also began to spread rapidly, turning the entire street into an extremely terrifying plant cage. Long Caesar was shocked to the extreme. What kind of monster can create such an exaggerated and vast scene in an instant? You know, he's just one person. This is really the level that a 6th-order lord can achieve. However, it was the vines that filled the sky and the sea of pirate flowers that answered him. Finally, when his heart was shaking, he broke through his line of defense and approached him and a few half-dragon lords. Exactly at this time. On the street in the distance, there were also many lords who heard the movement and arrived. One by one, they were shocked, looking at this terrifying plant that enveloped the entire block. What a perverted plant! How can there be such a big plant? The whole street was blocked. The sound of battle seems to come from inside, and someone is fighting inside. The lords exclaimed again and again, and they were all shaken in place. Don't even dare to get close to half a minute. And while they were watching from afar, inside the plant cage, there were a few shrill screams suddenly, and the sound of battle came to an abrupt end at this moment. Everyone's heart skipped a beat, and before they could react, the plant that enveloped the entire block began to quickly gather, and gradually they could see the scene inside. When he saw the corpses all over the ground and a figure standing alone, his complexion changed greatly. That's Long Caesar of the Dragon Venerable Realm and a few of his companions. Immediately, someone recognized the identity of the corpse there and couldn't help exclaiming. As soon as these words came out, the other lords were all shocked. Who is Long Caesar? That is the ruthless man in the top 10 on the kill list and the 4th on the magic energy list. Just die? Shocked, the lords quickly opened the leaderboard and took a look. Immediately afterwards, one's eyes widened. Really, disappeared. Dead. Long Caesar is really dead, how can that be? The lords looked at Lin You in the distance again, and a storm surged in their hearts. How dare you stay any longer, and take your troops away from here as if you were running away. The speed is so fast that it seems that Lin You will catch up with you if you take a step slower. And this news, like a hurricane, spread all over the eastern area of the city in a blink of an eye, causing an uproar in the city. What did you say? That dragon Caesar was killed. It's absolutely true. I saw it with my own eyes, and it was killed by one person, and the entire team of Dragon Venerable World was wiped out. Hey! All destroyed. Then what are we waiting for? Let's get out of here first. It will be bad if we encounter that monster. Similar conversations continue to occur in all corners of the east area of the city. Whether it was those who rushed over to chase Lin You, or the lords who were exploring nearby, they were all frightened by the news and hurriedly fled here. And this time, the lords from all walks of life finally deeply realized the horror of Lin You, and did not dare to provoke him easily. They are not stupid. Even if there is no clear evidence that Lin You moved his hand, they can guess one or two from the changes on the list. After all, Long Caesar carried more than 200,000 magical energy on his body. And after he and several lords of the Dragon Venerable realm were killed, Lin Yu's magic energy skyrocketed to an exaggerated level of 1.13 million. An idiot can guess who did it. And as the news continued to spread, the lords from all walks of life finally learned that Lin Yu's troops were of the plant system, and they all began to be vigilant. Luolei, have you heard? They said that Lin You is from the plant department. Didn't you say that the Lin You knew was also from the plant department? In an underground wine cellar in the outer city, Luolei and the two were hiding there, eavesdropping on the conversation of the passing lord through the gap, and also heard news about Lin You. Luolei's heart trembled, and he couldn't help taking a deep breath. It shouldn't be possible. The Lin You, I know, came only a month earlier than me. But even if it's not, then he's also from the primitive world. Why don't we go to him? The young man beside Luolei said excitedly. The young man's name was Su Shandong, and like Luolei, he was also a lord who had just arrived in the primitive continent. If they can get the protection of Lin You, then they will definitely be much safer, and they no longer have to worry about being killed by the lords of other realms. I don't say how many resources I can harvest, but I can survive these 3 days and leave the battlefield alive. Hearing his proposal, Luolei was also a little moved. After all, along the way, they have encountered many dangers and encountered many lords of other realms. It was not easy to escape to this place, to hide. It can really be said to be embarrassed to the extreme. This is only the first day. He couldn't imagine what kind of danger would be waiting for them after the next 2 poison circles shrink. How is it? Has it been decided yet? Su Shandong asked again. I think so. Luolei nodded. But now the city is filled with lords from other realms. I'm afraid it won't be easy for us to go through like this. Then what should we do? There's no way. Tomorrow, the poison circle will shrink. There is only one dead end to hide here. We can only fight. Okay, let's fight. Anyway, you will die. Gradually, their eyes became firm. After preparing in the wine cellar and looking at the empty street outside, he left the wine cellar with his troops and hurried to the east of the city. This was the first time that they were so blatantly walking on the street that they were inevitably a little nervous. Almost every time he traveled a certain distance, he would stop and observe the surroundings carefully, daring not to make too much movement, for fear of attracting other lords. Otherwise, with their strength, there is not much power to parry. In this way, they were investigating all the way forward. www.lightnovel.com. They soon left the hiding street and came to another street leading to the inner city. And one of their hearts gradually mentioned their throats. Because crossing this street is the inner city area, the chance of encountering other lords will also be greatly increased. Sure enough, when they crossed the street to the end of the street, there was a sudden sound of chaotic footsteps in the distance. Oops! Someone is coming, hurry up and hide. Luolei's complexion changed, and he immediately took his troops to hide in a dark alley aside. Su Shandong didn't move slowly, he entered the nearby shop in a blink of an eye, hiding his voice. Then it didn't take long for the 3 lords of other realms to appear where they had just stood, with a large number of 7th Order troops beside them. The 2 who were hiding were shocked in their hearts, and they held their breath and dared not make a sound. Then I heard one of the lords suddenly say, now the lords who are weaker than us are really getting harder and harder to find, and it is impossible to earn more magic energy." As he spoke, he gradually stopped and turned his back to where they were. "That's of course. Almost all the low-strength ones have been killed. It's not easy to encounter them again." The person who answered was a beast-type lord with a canine type of troops. And when he was talking, he just stopped in front of the hiding place of the two, and there was a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. Luo Lei's heart tightened, and they didn't dare to make any movement. However, in the next second, their expressions suddenly changed drastically. Because I don't know since when, one after another, dark canine soldiers have appeared above their hiding place, staring at them. Not good. It was discovered. Run away. Luo Lei and Su Xiangdong never thought that they would be discovered so quickly, and that they were lords so much stronger than them. Seeing that more and more arms were besieging them, they dared to hesitate, and rushed out of the alley of the shop with their respective arms and fled towards the inner city. Oh? The response is quite fast. The three lords chuckled and looked at the two fleeing with a playful look, but did not immediately launch an attack. Instead, he slowly chased after riding the troops. "It's rare to meet such a weak lord, this time it's my turn to play, right?" One of the mechanical lords riding a war mech licked his tongue and was eager to try. "As you like." The beast lord said lightly, "A newcomer like this, with only a few seventh orders, has basically no magical energy on his body, just play around. Be careful not to attract other lords." Another insect lord interjected. "Don't worry, I won't let them escape from this area, haha." The mechanical lord laughed wildly, and immediately sped up and rushed out of the team, and surrounded the two fleeing Luo Lei with his troops. Seeing this, Luo Lei's complexion changed drastically. "Go. Stop him." With an order, except for the seventh order undead wolf riding under him, all the troops around him turned around and met the mechanical lord. Su Xiangdong gave orders to his water element. In an instant, the water flow converged and turned into a sharp arrow that shot straight at the opponent. "Humph, little tricks of the eagles, give it to me and kill them all." The mechanical lord completely ignored the two of them. With a big wave of his hand, the war mechas around him pulled out the mechanical serrations on their bodies and suddenly threw them towards the arms of the two. Whoosh! The huge mechanical gear turned into an afterimage and rushed into the troops. In an instant, the broken bones flew around, and Luo Lei's undead troops were instantly killed, and they all fell to the ground. Then the gear is castrated, and it goes around in front of the two of them, making a roundabout cut. "Flick away!" Luo Lei shouted in shock, and rode the undead wolf to the side, barely dodging the gear's attack. However, Su Xiangdong was not so lucky. With a pop, a slit was cut directly in his waist, and the blood flower exploded. Even the water elements around him were cut open and turned into pools of stagnant water. Old Su. Luo Lei's eyes were splitting, and he was ready to rush over to help. "Leave me alone." "Hurry up." Su Xiangdong endured the severe pain and let the water element heal himself, then suddenly stopped and attacked the mechanical lord frantically with the only remaining water element. He actually wanted to delay Luo Lei. No way, the strength gap between the two is really too big. If they continue to escape like this, they will both die. Anyway, he couldn't escape very far with his seriously injured body now, so he might as well fight hard before he died, so that at least he could buy Luo Lei time to escape. After thinking about it, Su Xiangdong suddenly looked at Luo Lei. "Come on. I'll hold him back." Those words full of determination made Luo Lei's heart tremble. He gritted his teeth and finally stopped. "Fuck. Do you think I'll thank you for that?" With a loud slur, he immediately turned around, rushed over and pulled Su Xiangdong onto the back of another undead wolf, turned and fled. But it was precisely because of this delay that the mechanical lord also put away the gears again and chased after him with his war mecha, with a mocking expression on his face. "It's such a touching brotherhood that I almost cried, haha, I pretended, go and beat them down." With an order, the war mecha beside him once again threw out the gear and attacked the two fleeing. Although the two of them had been prepared for a long time, they let the remaining 7th Order arms block. But it was still scratched by a few gears, and the blood flower exploded, almost falling off the wolf's back. Of course, there is also the playful mentality of the mechanical lord. He didn't kill them all at once, but followed closely behind to watch them flee in embarrassment. In this way, in the chase and escape, Luo Lei and the two had fewer and fewer arms, and only a few 7th Orders were left to barely support. And they gradually crossed the street and came to the inner city area. Old Xiao, stop playing, the inner city area is ahead. At this time, there was a sudden urging from the other two lords from the rear, who seemed to be extremely afraid of the inner city area. The mechanical lord who was teasing Luo Lei also reacted and said nonchalantly, "Don't worry, that pervert is deep in the inner city, could he still run out for these two rookies?" Although he said so, his expression gradually became solemn. Glancing at the direction of the inner city, he immediately ordered the troops around him. "Okay, let's kill them." The voice fell, and a few bursts of air rang out again. Luo Lei and Su Shangdong, who were fleeing, only felt a chill behind them, and without thinking about it, they changed their direction and ran into the alley on the side. Boom! The gear was embedded in the building on the street, causing a violent explosion, but no killing prompt appeared. Escaped? The mechanical lord frowned. And just when he was puzzled, Luo Lei, riding the undead wolf, reappeared. At this time, the two of them can almost be said to be at the end of the battle. There are cut wounds everywhere on their bodies, and even their vision becomes blurred. Hold on a little longer, it's almost there. Luo Lei gritted his teeth and stared straight ahead. Next to him, Su Shangdong almost fainted, barely holding on with his last breath. "Give it up, you can't escape." The arrogant words of the mechanical lord came from behind. After he was motivated to kill, he didn't keep his hands anymore, and the rotating gears appeared in the sky, turning into streams of light and attacking the two of them. Only then did Luo Lei take out a scroll from his personal space. "This is my last resort, success or failure is here. Lao Su, hurry up." After saying that, he ripped open the scroll directly, releasing a strong wind attribute aura, wrapping the two of them and the undead wolves under them, and then the speed was suddenly mentioned, and the mechanical lord was gradually left behind. Dodge the attack of the gears at once. Okay? The mechanical lord let out a small snort. He didn't expect Luo Lei to hide this method. His face sank, and he immediately drove the war mecha to chase after him. "Old Xiao, stop. It's deep in the inner city ahead." The anxious shouts of the other two lords came from behind. But how could the mechanical lord let the duck with its mouth fly? Instead of slowing down at all, they pursued at full speed and rushed out of the street where they were in the blink of an eye. Gradually, a huge palace gate appeared in their sight. When he saw the terrifying plant army on the edge of the palace gate, the mechanical lord was shocked and stopped in shock. He had heard the rumors about Lin You with his own ears. That was the ruthless man who destroyed the entire Dragon Venerable Realm team alone. It's definitely not something that little scumbags like them can afford. Unexpectedly, this ruthless man was still outside the palace and did not enter the palace to find the source of the plague, and his eyes widened in shock. At this moment, Lin You, who was resting in the distance, also found them and looked curiously at the two figures that were rapidly approaching him. "Help, help." Vaguely, only a trembling cry for help could be heard. If it wasn't for Lin Yu's strengthened body and excellent hearing, I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to hear clearly. And what surprised him was that from the two of them, he didn't feel the slightest sense of rejection. Is it a primitive person? Lin Yu was startled, and immediately greeted him with Lingxi. Then, only to hear two muffled sounds of bang bang, the two figures riding on the backs of the undead wolves could no longer support them, and fell heavily to the ground, finally revealing their faces. After seeing their appearance clearly, Lin Yu's expression suddenly changed. "Luo Lei." Lin Yu was completely shocked. He never expected to meet Luo Lei in such a place, the person who belonged to the same novice area as him and traded the ancient tree of knowledge to him. Seeing that the two were seriously injured and dying, they immediately shouted to the elves around them, "Quick! Quickly, treat them!" In an instant, the green brilliance lit up and instantly wrapped the bodies of the two of them, along with a few undead wolves and water elements on the side, and quickly healed their injuries. "How come?" The mechanical lord, who was parked in the distance, looked at this scene with horror, and his whole body trembled violently. Those two rookies turned out to be the perverted companions. How can that be? Fear spread all over his body in an instant, making his face turn pale in a flash, and he immediately stepped back in a panic. At this moment he still doesn't know where he has messed with people he shouldn't mess with, and he is the worst person in the entire battlefield. Therefore, there is only one thought in his mind now, and that is to escape, run as far away as possible. Even the two companions he had just arrived at also discovered the seriousness of the matter, and they were all shocked. He didn't dare to hesitate, turned around and ran away, only to hate that his parents didn't give him 2 more legs. "Since you're here, don't leave." But at this moment, an indifferent voice sounded. Before they could react, dense vines had appeared around them, surrounding them. "No. Forgive us, we didn't mean to hurt them, we didn't know they were your companions." The 3 lords held mournfully, and with their arms, they frantically wanted to break through the vines. However, no matter how they resisted, they were still by more and more vines, and they were drowned by countless plants in the blink of an eye. Except for the 3 of them, all the troops were penetrated by the vines, and their bodies were dismembered on the spot. And they were all tied into zongzi by vines, and dragged back to Lin You, leaving only one breath for them to hang. After doing this, Lin You came to Luo Lei's side again, to check their injuries. Fortunately, he was only temporarily in a coma due to excessive bleeding, and he did not suffer any fatal injuries. Under the combined treatment of Lingxi and the elves, the two finally woke up from the coma. "Am I dead?" Luo Lei propped up his body and looked around blankly. When he saw Lin You standing beside him, he was stunned for a moment, and then his eyes suddenly widened. "Lin, Boss Lin? Is it really you?" At this moment, what Luo Lei could really say was that he was shocked to the extreme. The rumored lord of the primitive realm who made everyone terrified turned out to be someone he knew. Shock and disbelief surged into his heart instantly, leaving him stunned in place. Not to mention Su Shangdong next to him. After hearing the boss Lin, he called Lin You just now, the whole person fell into a daze. My friend actually knew this big guy. You know, this is the bull who has almost dominated the entire #1 battlefield. If it were the past, he would never have dreamed that he would be associated with such a big man. Especially when he saw the terrifying plants around him, he was so shocked that he couldn't even speak. But right now, the two reacted and hurriedly looked around. Don't look at them, they have been controlled by me. Lin, you naturally knew what they were looking at. Clap your hands, and the 3 lords bound by the vines were dragged over, all of them looking like they were dying. This. Luo Lei and Su Shangdong immediately got up and looked at the 3 in front of them in shock. Is this the guy who just chased and killed them and almost drove them to a dead end? They were chasing you just now, right? Lin You asked. Luo Lei responded blankly. If that's the case, then they'll leave it to you to solve it. Lin You has probably guessed the whole story now, so he did not kill the 3 lords directly, but left them to deal with it. Luo Lei and Su Shangdong looked at the 3, and then at Lin You, unable to help swallowing. Do you really want to hand it over to us? Well, you can figure it out for yourself. Lin You nodded, then walked aside and gave them the place. Luo Lei and Su Shangdong glanced at each other, finally with a hard look, they pulled out their weapons and walked over. When the 3 lords saw them through the gaps in the vines, they struggled in horror, trying to break free from the vines. But how could Luo Lei and Su Shangdong give them a chance? Recalling the humiliation of fleeing just now, and the fierce face of the other party who wanted to torture them to death, he immediately raised his sword. Puff! The blood flower exploded, the long knife passed directly through the chest, and the two of them stopped struggling instantly. With the remaining one, Su Xiangdong gave it to Luo Lei, and in a blood-red knife light, he followed in the footsteps of those two. At this point, the three hunted down their lords and killed them all. Luo Lei and Su Xiangdong stood up and stared blankly at the corpse in front of them and the blood on their hands. It felt unreal. Several powerful lords just died in their hands? It's too easy, isn't it? Certainly. They also know that all this is thanks to Lin You. After being stunned, he immediately put away his weapon and came to Lin You. How is it? Have you got the resources? Lin You asked. Yeah. Luo Lei nodded heavily, still with excitement in his eyes. Boss Lin You, I didn't expect to meet you here. Yeah, I haven't seen you for almost 4 months. Lin You sighed with emotion. Then why did you all appear in battlefield number 1 and come to such a place? It's not because of random allocation that I was unlucky to be assigned to this battlefield. There was a hint of bitterness in Luo Lei's eyes. Lords like us who have just arrived, it is too difficult to survive on this battlefield, so when we saw the name of the boss Lin You on the list, we thought of running over to join you. I ran into these 3 people halfway through. So you were chased all the way? Lin You frowned. Yeah. Luo Lei nodded. If Boss Lin You hadn't appeared in time, we would have been dead. There was a deep sense of fear in his words. Even Su Xiangdong on the side was the same, with palpitations that had not yet dissipated on his face. It seems that in order to come to join Lin You, he really gave up completely. Lin You glanced at the embarrassed appearance of the two of them, and the few 7th Order troops left by his side. He smiled and said, if this is the case, then you should follow me first. Real. When Luo Lei heard the words, they immediately became excited. They're risking their lives to get here, isn't that what they're doing? But I have a condition. Lin You continued, next, you all have to listen to my arrangements and don't act casually. Don't worry, we will. The two nodded like chickens pecking at rice. We will do whatever Boss Lin You tells me to do. Okay, let's go and rest first. You guys are so badly injured. You can move on when you recover from your injuries tomorrow morning. At this time, the sky has gradually turned dark. This is also the reason why Lin You did not go deep into the palace. After all, there is a lot of in the palace, and I don't know what dangers will be encountered at night, or it is safer to act during the day. Thinking that other lords should follow him and choose to wait outside the palace for one night. So soon, he took Luo Lei and the others into the mansion on the side, found a clean place to make a fire and made food, and chatted about their experiences by the way. What surprised Lin You was that the place where Luo Lei descended was actually in the Yuehua Principality, which had just lost its king before, and there were only 2 principalities separated from the Great Wilderness Principality. As for Luo Lei, it was almost half a month after the regional blockade was lifted that he reached the 6th rank and came to the primitive continent. I have to say I was lucky. However, Luo Lei and the two had no intention of caring about this. At this time, they were deeply shocked by the surrounding plants of various shapes and terrifying momentum, and their hearts trembled violently. Especially Luo Lei. He had thought that Lin Yu's strength would be very strong, but he didn't expect it to be so strong. 2 8th Order arms, and an exaggerated number of 7th Order arms. Is this really what the 6th Order Lord can do? It's only been 4 months. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that Lin Yu really belonged to the same area as him. At the same time, I am extremely fortunate that when I was in the area, my actions to establish a good relationship with Lin Yu actually saved my life at this critical time. And the 2 lords he killed just now also gave him hundreds of thousands of magical energy, which was undoubtedly a huge sum of money for him who had just arrived. So he was very grateful to Lin Yu. That's all. The 3 of them chatted while eating, until it was completely dark, and they each found a clean room nearby to rest, which completely ended this thrilling day. Early the next morning, Lin Yu Tian woke up at dawn. After a brief preparation, they left the mansion with Luo Lei and the 2 of them directly, and walked down the path of the plants to the gate of the palace. Looking at the long passage leading to the interior of the palace, Luo couldn't help swallowing. Boss Lin, do we really want to go inside? Well, I have to find the source of the plague before the other lords, and I can feel that the source of the plague should be related to the formation of the battlefield. Lin You said intently. Indeed. Su Xiangdong nodded. On our way, we also found a lot of information about this battlefield in the surrounding villages. It seems that this plague came from the palace. Are you sure? Lin You looked at him. Sure, that's a clue we found in the home of a palace maid who returned home, but I didn't expect that the palace maid also had a plague on her body, infecting the whole village. So it is. Lin You lowered his head and pondered. If you say that, the source of the plague should be in this palace. You should follow closely, and you are going in. With that said, he asked Qingting to use the vines to build a wall ladder on the side of the palace wall, allowing the plants to enter the city through the vines. Because he noticed that there were still many zombies gathering in the passage leading to the palace. Although not too much, the place is cramped and not suitable for combat. It is still simple and rude to directly cross the city wall, and it can save a lot of effort. Naturally, Luo did not dare to hesitate, and followed Lin You closely and came to the palace wall with him. Then, a scene different from outside the city came into their eyes. This is... Luo's eyes widened in shock, looking at everything in front of him. Even Lin You was deeply shocked by the pictures in the palace. Wherever his eyes go, there are zombies and corpses all over the ground, and gray-white roots that almost cover the entire palace. Even the lakes in the distance were dyed black and red, constantly exuding a disgusting stench. But what shocked them the most was the place where the roots and stems converged, a magnificent palace in the middle of the palace. There is a huge flower that is very strange, and it stands between the heavens and the earth. The bright red was simply incompatible with the gray and white in the palace. That seems to be the other shore flower? Luo said in horror that it was the first time he had seen such a big other flower. It was several times bigger than Lin Yu's Qingting. Even the dark clouds in the sky are slowly gathering towards the sky, which looks both spectacular and terrifying. Is that the source of the plague? Lin You frowned. For some reason, he always felt that the flower was a little unusual. And just as they were observing the situation in the palace, a prompt sounded immediately. Lords, please note that the deadly plague is about to start shrinking. At that time, the battlefield area will be reduced to half of the original size, please be prepared. Boom. A loud bang. The poison circle that was still standing outside Dian City finally started to move again, slowly shrinking in the direction of Dian City. According to the distance, this time it should shrink directly to the outer city area. In other words, all the lords will be forced to the inner city, and finally have to take refuge in the palace. Let's go, time is running out, we have to act quickly. Tomorrow noon is the time for the end of the battlefield. Lin You didn't want to waste time, and immediately took the plants over the palace wall and entered the palace. All of a sudden, the nearby zombies were attracted by the breath of flesh and blood, and surrounded them with roars. There were even 2 Eighth Orders mixed with them, and they were extremely powerful. But immediately, they were blocked by the undead flower army. Then, in a loud roar, he was beaten to death by Lingxi Qingting and 2 Eighth Order tree demons, and fell to the ground unwillingly. So strong. Luo and the two watched the 2 Eighth Orders being solved neatly, and their eyes were about to fall out. Finally, I realized Lin Yu's terrifying strength. And this time, at the entrance of the palace in the other 3 directions, the other lords also began to act one after another, taking their respective armies into the palace, constantly slaughtering the zombies along the way, all wanting to find the source of the plague as soon as possible. It's just that they don't know. Just when they entered the palace, a figure sitting on a dragon chair suddenly opened his eyes in the palace under the other side flower. Quick! There are zombies rushing over there. Stop them! One after another, shouts rang out in every corner of the palace. After more than half an hour of fighting, the palace gates in the 3 directions were finally successfully opened, and lords from all fields began to pour into the palace. Then they discovered something very serious. That is, in the palace, there are many 8th Order zombies, all of which are mixed with 7th Order zombies, attacking them. Some people who find an organization and meet their companions are fine, at least they can barely hold on by their numbers. Or the lords who have the 8th Order arms themselves can defeat them one by one and move forward slowly. But those lords who had neither the 8th Order arms nor their companions were much more miserable. They were directly washed away by the 8th Order zombies and retreated outside the palace as if they were fleeing. Damn, with so many Tier 8 zombies, it's impossible to get to the center of the palace before dark today. Near a pavilion in the southern palace gate, several lords stood guard in the corner, constantly resisting zombies from all directions. Their faces were very ugly. There's no way, now even the sky is full of flying zombies, so we can only move forward slowly. Another person said helplessly. I just hope not to be preempted by others. After all, many people are staring at that thing this time. What if you get preempted? Do you really think that thing is so easy to get? Indeed, we have come to the number 1 battlefield several times, and each time we have returned without success. This time, we don't know what difficulties will arise. If we are unsuccessful, we can only go up to the 7th rank. As they talked, the expressions of several people became unpleasant. And similar words are appearing in every corner of the palace at this time. The powerful lords are all working hard to clear the zombies and approach the center of the palace. Even Lin You, who has many subordinates, is only faster than them, because he has to allocate a lot of energy to deal with the occasional 8th Order zombies, which has caused a lot of loss of his immortal flower. And so on until half the morning passed. Luo Lei's low voice suddenly came from beside Lin You. Boss Lin You, there seems to be someone over there. When the voice fell, I saw that between the palaces in the distance, there were several lords with troops to resist the zombies from all directions. It was probably because of the fierce battle that they didn't even notice their approach. Come on, let's go take a look. Lin You made a decisive decision, and immediately led the plants around to the back, avoiding the sight of the other party. Gradually, a few arrogant laughter entered their ears through the wall. Haha, those idiots would never have imagined that we have so many angel-type units this time, which just happens to have a restraint on zombies. It is estimated that they are still struggling near the palace gate. When they arrive, we will have that thing long ago. That's right, only our Yuansha realm deserves that thing. The undisguised words can be heard even from a distance. Lin You, who was eavesdropping, was also stunned. The original evil world? They actually met the deadly enemy, the lord of the original Shajie? As the so-called enemies meet, they are particularly jealous. After learning the identity of the other party, Lin Yu's eyes gradually narrowed. Although he would also resources when encountering lords in other realms, the original Sha realm was different. As the great enemy they are facing in the primitive world, it is absolutely necessary to eradicate them all. So I didn't think much about it. After giving Luo Lei a look at the two of them, he let the plants spread out, and gradually surrounded a few lords of the original evil world. By the way, he carefully cleaned up the surrounding zombies, and turned them into immortal flowers. After a long time, one of the lords of the original Sha world felt something was wrong and became puzzled. What's the matter? Why does the movement outside seem to have become smaller? Should the nearby zombies be cleaned up soon? The other few didn't think much about it, and continued to march towards the depths of the palace with their arms. But as they walked, they also found that something was wrong. Because I don't know when it started, a hint of pink began to diffuse in the air, covering the entire area where they were. Vaguely, the scene in front of him began to become dazed. Not good. This gas is poisonous. Be careful. The angelic lord was shocked and finally reacted. However, in the next second, there was a boom from the bottom of their feet, and several huge vines rushed out. Puff. The sound of flesh being penetrated sounded. Two of the unresponsive lords were instantly pierced through their lower bodies and killed on the spot. The remaining 3 lords turned pale with fright, and suddenly woke up from their charm. It's the lord of another realm. Get out of here. In the panic, a dazzling light immediately erupted from the angel-type troops around them, forming a shield of holy light around them, while blocking the poisonous fog around them. However, when they rushed out of the palace and came outside, they were stunned by the scene in front of them, and their eyes suddenly widened. What did they see? Countless piranhas and twisting vines all over the sky. In this way, they were surrounded in the middle, and all the back roads were blocked. Go, don't leave one. Between enemies, there is no need for too many words at all. Hearing a low voice from Lin You, the plants around him turned into torrents and attacked the 3 lords of the original Sha world. All of a sudden, the vine thorns were flying, the mushroom thorn were thrown wildly, and the ancient war tree rushed into the encirclement with the sound of roaring footsteps. The 3 original shaman world lords were terrified, and immediately surrounded the surrounding units to resist the attack of the plant army. Next to the angelic lord, there was a holy sword that shone with light, and it shot a rain of swords all around. As long as the plants were hit by the sword rain, they were all killed instantly, and even the vines of the green ivy were blocked. It's hard to get close in a short time. 8th Order troops? Lin You frowned. It was the first time he had seen this type of angel-type unit. You must know that Qingting has killed a lot of zombies along the way, and his attributes have already increased to the peak of nearly 8th Order. Even so, there is no way to break through the opponent's line of defense, but it is conceivable how strong this unit is. Surprised, he immediately looked at the holy sword in the air, and then an attribute interface also appeared in his eyes. Name, Sword of the Holy Judge. Race, Angel, Hero. Level 8? Strength? Constitution? Agile? Spirit? Skills, Holy Judge, Blade Flurry, Sword Light. Surrounded by the Holy Sword? Introduction. The Holy Sword evolved from Holy Light, an extremely rare angel-type unit, good at large-scale group attacks. Between lords, there is no way to check the detailed information of each other's arms. But you can access some of the most basic information. When he saw the word hero on the attribute interface, Lin You suddenly realized. It turns out that this unit is the same as the Qingting, and it is also a heroic unit, and the introduction also said that this is a rare unit of the angel department. No wonder. It's no wonder that even the vines of the ivy can't be benefited. It turned out that the other party, like him, also has the building of the hero transformation pool, and also obtained such a rare and powerful unit. Needless to say, this angelic lord should belong to the top genius among the 6th-rank lords of the original evil world, and the future is bright. If that's the case, then there's no way to keep him. Lin Yu's face sank, and the Lingxi beside him flew into the air, and then the force of nature erupted, and countless thorns and leaves condensed, turning into streamers and shooting out towards those flying swords. Chong! A violent collision exploded in the air. The dense attacks on both sides began to madly counterattack in the air, making a series of harsh sounds. Feijin, which was still arrogant for a while, was actually losing ground under the attack of those leaves and thorns, and gradually fell behind. How can it be? The angel lord's eyes widened. His own rank 8 rare arms were actually pressed and beaten by a small flower essence from the opponent. Could it be that the opponent is a rank 9 arms? But where would he think? At this time, Lingxi, like his holy sword, was not only a rare heroic unit, but also awakened the royal bloodline. The spiritual attribute with a full value of 2,500 points, as well as various gains, the power of the skills can definitely easily crush any 8th order. Don't give him a chance to think about it at all. When the attack of the holy sword was suppressed, Lin You gave an order, and the plants attacked again. Led by 2 8th order tree demons, they rushed in and madly killed the troops around them. The recovered ivy also joined the battle, and the vines kept swimming like a giant python, penetrating the bodies of one soldier after another. Looking at the fallen troops around them, the three lords of the Yuansha realm turned pale, finally frightened, and turned around and fled without thinking. But at this moment, the space within the entire range suddenly distorted. A huge gravitational force appeared, directly crushing them to the ground. It is Qin Gang's gravity field skill, and at the moment when the gravity field skill was activated, several red mushrooms were accurately thrown in front of them by the Mushroom Demon King, causing their faces to change wildly. Boom! A deafening explosion swept all around. Under the blessing of double the explosive power, the entire ground was blown into a huge deep pit, and the three lords were blown to pieces, leaving no bones behind. Then a few prompts sounded in Lin Yu's mind. Kill the 6th Order Lord of the Alien Plane, get 120,000 mana, and the 6th Order Territory Essence X1. Kill the 6th Order Lord of the Alien Plane, get 90,000 mana, and the 6th Order Territory Essence X1. Kill the 6th Order Lord of the Alien Plane, get 200,000 mana, and the 6th Order Territory Essence X1. All at once, he provided him with 410,000 mana. Including the two he killed earlier, the total was 560,000, making his accumulated mana instantly soar to 1.7 million. But what surprised Lin You the most was in the deep pit. There was actually something emitting a dim light, something that looked like a holy light cross. Did something explode? Lin You was pleasantly surprised, but he didn't expect that the opponent still had battlefield treasures on his body, and it exploded directly after being killed. Without any hesitation, he ran over and picked it up. The thing is very heavy to start, it is a cross with mysterious lines. There is also a sapphire gem in the middle. From the gem, Lin Yu could feel a very powerful aura of holy light, even stronger than Ling Xi's healing skills. Lin Yu was full of doubts, could this be an angel item? If that's the case, then he's probably going to be busy again. After thinking about it, I checked the attributes of the cross. Territory Sacred Artifact, Holy Light Retribution, Angel. Level 1, Skill Power, plus 5%, Gain Effect, plus 10%. Level 2, Unlocked, Skill Power, plus 5%, Gain Effect, plus 10%. Level 3, Unlocked, Skill Power, plus 5%, Gain Effect, plus 10%. Level 4, Unlocked, Territorial Skill, Light Retribution. Territory Characteristics, Skill Power increased by 5%, Holy Light Energy Recovery Speed increased by 10%. An Angelic Territorial Relic? Lin Yu's eyes were surprised, but he didn't expect this to be a sacred object. It's a pity that his plant system cannot be used, and his Savage Growth Holy Artifact is not weaker than this. However, he can keep it first and sell it later, or exchange it for other resources. After all, the basic sacred artifact only has 3 attributes, but this one has 4 attributes, plus a level 4 skill and a territory feature. This is definitely a good thing that those angel lords yearn for, and it should be no problem to sell it for a good price. After thinking about it, he put the cross into his personal space and began to clean up the surrounding corpses. Because he has found out that these people and troops will mutate into zombies after death, or it is better not to leave hidden dangers. As for the 2 Luo Lei, naturally, they would not have any opinions. After all, they were lucky enough to follow Lin Yu to save their lives, how could they dare to ask for anything? After disposing of the corpse, I heard Su Shondong ponder and say, just now, these people seem to be saying that they and other lords only entered the palace for something. I don't know what it will be. Could it be that there are other incredible treasures here? Luo Lei wondered. There is a possibility. Su Shondong nodded, and listening to their tone, it seems that they already knew what it was, which is a bit strange. That seems to be true. Luo Lei's eyes were shining, as if he had discovered something extraordinary. At this time, Lin Yu also came over and said, if this is the case, then we have to speed up. It must be difficult to make so many lords think about it. As he said that, he immediately gathered all the plants to his side and continued to march towards the palace, slaying zombies along the way. It was not until near noon that their actions were finally interrupted by a prompt. Lords, please note that the treasures on the battlefield will appear and will be randomly refreshed in all corners of the battlefield. It's a battlefield treasure. Luo cried out in surprise, and suddenly looked up at the sky. I saw 3 beams of light suddenly appear in the sky and landed rapidly towards the battlefield, and the landing position was inside the palace. This change immediately caused a commotion among the surviving lords, who rushed into the palace and went straight to the beam of light. Some people took the opportunity to guard near the entrance of the palace, attacking and killing the passing lords, causing chaos inside and outside the palace. Lin You took a look. The closest beam of light to him was at the Yuan garden in the southeast, which was only 2 or 3 kilometers away. Come on, let's go take a look first. When battlefield treasures appeared, it was naturally impossible for him to give up. Immediately turned the direction and hurried with the team towards the Imperial Garden. But what Lin You didn't expect was that. Just when he spent 10 minutes to get outside the Imperial Garden, he found that the entire Imperial Garden was shrouded in dense spider silk. Everywhere you look, there are spider eggs that are constantly wriggling, and countless small spiders crawling back and forth, turning into a giant spider lair. Even those zombies that passed by were entangled in spider silk, their flesh and blood were drained, and they became mummified corpses hanging on it, making the scalp numb. The most terrible thing is that the beam of light, which symbolizes the treasures of the battlefield, happens to fall in the center of the Imperial Garden. What? Are we going in? Luo swallowed their saliva and looked at Lin You together. However, before Lin You could answer, a scream suddenly came from a distance. A lord who had just arrived was immediately entangled in spider silk and dragged into the lair. Even the dozens of troops around him were not spared, all of them were drowned by the spiders that emerged crazily. The screams and roars kept echoing in the ears, but eventually disappeared in the rustling sound of gnawing, causing the lords who arrived later to be shocked. Everyone be careful. These spiders are all 7th order. An exclamation sounded from the other direction of the Imperial Garden. More and more lords rushed here and discovered the horror of the Imperial Garden. But immediately, a large fire suddenly appeared in one of the corners, and the fire lords who had restrained on spider webs finally started to do it. It was obvious that he was eager to grab the treasure. Let's go in too, be careful not to get tangled in spider silk. Lin You explained, and immediately took the plants into the garden. Seeing this, Luo and the 2 were immediately startled, and hurriedly called their respective arms to their side, closely following in Lin Yu's footsteps. And the next second they stepped into the range of the spider's lair. Countless little spiders left the lair and rushed towards them. Name, Plague Venom Spider. Race, Animal. Level 7. Strength, 650. Physique, 650. Agility, 870. Spirit, 650. Skills, Fangs, Cutting, Plague Spider Silk. Introduction: the offspring of the human-faced poisonous spider, with extremely fast movement speed. The attributes of these little spiders are not high, and their body size is only the size of 2 palms, but the number is extremely large. In just a few seconds, thousands of poisonous spiders have emerged, densely connected, looking extremely terrifying. Go and get rid of them. Of course, Lin Yu's plants are not vegetarian. With a single order, the sea of dead flowers in the vine forest spread out around, attacking the poisonous spiders that rushed up. With the blessings of Lingxi and Willow's attributes, the entire battle can almost be said to be one-sided. The poisonous spider fell under the attack of the plants, and was transformed into an undead flower to join the battle. In the blink of an eye, the number of undead flowers around Lin You surged from 600 to 700 to more than 1,000, and as more and more poisonous spiders died, more and more undead flowers were resurrected. It is simply a natural soldier's paradise. Lin You was pleasantly surprised, but he didn't expect this place to have such benefits. How could he keep his hands and attack the surrounding spiders even more frantically? The Fire Lord on the other side continued to penetrate into the Imperial Garden with the suppression of the flame attack. Gradually, several groups of people came to the depths of the Imperial Garden, a boulder rockery, and were deeply shocked by the scene in front of them. I saw that above the rockery, a spider web that almost covered the entire rockery stood there, covered with all kinds of heads and torsos that had been sucked clean. On the spider web, a huge spider hung upside down, watching them condescendingly. The spread spider legs alone are nearly 20 meters long. But what shocked them the most was the spider's head and body. It turned out to be a human face and a twisted human shape, tightly combined with the spider's body. Name, venomous spider, chaos. Race, animal. Level, level 8. Power, 2600. Physique, 2500. Agility, 2500. Spirit, 2600. Skills, spawn, plague spider silk, fear scream. Resentment, endless resentment is accumulated in the heart, and all attributes are increased by 20%. Introduction. The concubine who was the king of the Dian kingdom, for unknown reasons, mutated into a monster with a human face and spider body, and left part of her consciousness during her lifetime. It turned out to be an 8th order chaotic monster. Lin You was shocked. Looking at the attributes that have exceeded the upper limit of the 8th order, it can definitely be said that he has seen the 8th order with the highest attributes so far. It has even caught up with Ivy and Lingxi, who have symbiotically coexisted with armored moss. These are nothing. What caught Lin Yu's attention the most was the introduction below, the concubine of the king of Dian kingdom. Could it be that this spider monster was mutated from humans? Ho ho ha ha ha, blood, I smell blood. Just thinking about it, the human-faced demon spider suddenly spit out human words and gave out a terrifying grin. And in the center of its spider web, a shining thing hangs on it, which immediately shocked the spirit of the surrounding lords. Battlefield treasures. Go. Grab the treasure. The treasure is mine. Stop him. In an instant, the lords took action one after another, and rushed into the rockery with troops. But at this time, a dense number of 7th order poisonous spiders emerged from the rockery blocking their way. And the huge body of the human-faced poisonous spider also fell from the sky and landed on the ground with a bang, and the sharp blades on its forelimbs swept away suddenly. Puff. A large piece of the soldier's body was cut in half, and blood spilled on the ground. Then the human-faced poisonous spider raised his head, his bloodthirsty eyes pointed directly at the lord behind the troops, and rushed towards them while laughing wildly. Die. You all deserve to die. Give me all to die. Ha 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 ha. Those who stole His Majesty will die. Crazy crazy, this monster is crazy. What kind of monster is this? It's rushing towards us, run away. The shrill howl of the poisonous spider with human face, accompanied by the exclamations of the lords, constantly echoed in the imperial garden. It was only a face-to-face, and the entire army team was washed away, dying and fleeing. The man-faced poisonous spider obviously also had some wisdom, and he even stared at the lords and chased them frantically, like a mad woman who is mad and biting. Fortunately, Lin You had foresight and had been hiding in a wood behind the rockery, and no one noticed his existence. While the human-faced poisonous spider was chasing other lords, vines appeared outside the woods and spread towards the rockery, trying to take the opportunity to grab the treasure and get away. After all, the attribute of the human-faced poisonous spider is still a bit tricky to deal with. But he never expected it. Just when the vines had just crossed the rockery and came to the spider web, the human-faced poisonous spider in the distance suddenly turned around with a stern look on his face. Bitch! Even you want to take away my majesty? With a scream, he left the other lords directly and rushed towards him. Thank you for watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share and subscribe. Have a great day.